Please welcome Sean Baker. How was your weekend?
Oh, uneventful.
Well, thank you for being here. And I think, as with Jacques, before we talk about your 2024 wonderful film, I want to just kind of make sure people are aware a little bit about you. And from my understanding and interactions with you over the years, you are like the biggest film lover out there. You are, I mean, you have the coolest collection of movie posters of anybody I know. I think you if anybody goes and watches your Criterion Closet talk, you're like the film professor we all wish we had. Just what was the root of your love of movies? How did this all begin?
The root. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. My mother. My mother introduced me to the movies when I was 5 years old. Actually, she brought me to the local library in Milburn, New Jersey, where they were showing clips. Oh, okay, Milburn, New Jersey, out there. And there was they were showing clips from the Universal monster films. So it was like a moment from The Mummy, a moment from Dracula, and they got to Frankenstein. It was that burning windmill sequence, James Whale's 1931 Frankenstein, and my God, it just burned right into the prefrontal cortex. It was like, and the next morning I woke up and I told my mother I want to make movies. So, and they were very supportive. They allowed me to do the Super 8 movies and then moving into VHS and then supporting me while I went to film school. So, yeah.
That's great. Now, what I wonder is if there's any rhyme or reason in terms of things that you've studied or read about, or like, why is it 5 of the 8 feature films you've directed, The Extraordinary Starlet, Tangerine, Florida Project, Red Rocket, and now Anora, have prominently featured, dealt with, covered in different ways the experiences of people who do sex work? What is it that piqued your interest about that?
Well, I actually think it was the research I did for Starlet. On Starlet, it came from some interactions I had with adult film stars on a television show, and I was friends with them, and I kind of saw behind the curtain, you know, the everyday mundane part of their lives, and I was like, maybe I would like to tell a story that focuses on them as people and not the livelihood, not their career. Because that's how they are defined, and I don't think that's fair. So, so that really one led to the next, because befriending sex workers, hearing stories, you know, I heard a million stories, and so, you know, there were. I could keep doing this. I never wanted it to become a shtick, though. It really happened organically. For example, after Red Rocket, I thought I was going to be making a film about drug user activism, but there was this other story that came up about a young dancer and an escort, and I felt it was the time to tell that story. So, yeah.
Now when writing Anora, or the spark for writing Anora, I think you've said was the home invasion sequence. The initial thing was that I think you said that made you want to write the rest of it. Can you talk about that? Because that is in the middle of this film, for people who need a reminder. I mean, I think it's like 20-minute sequence.
28 minutes,
28 minutes.
Yeah.
And so just, you know, kinetic and exciting and crazy. So I could see how that might be. But so you literally, it starts there, and then you build around that?
I had this idea being based on a few stories I heard of a young woman being held collateral for something that her husband did in the Russian mob, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what would happen if suddenly she had no idea what was going on and had to deal with who in a what she thought was a life-threatening situation. So, you know, this and I also knew that I was going to be setting up this film in a way that was almost almost an abridged version of a Hollywood rom-com, and then immediately slamming us into something totally very different, and just making us sit with this in almost in Annie's position of having to deal with this very scary, drawn out, real time scene. I wanted the audience to sit in that. So that was, something in which was one of the very early ideas, and something that had to be, because it plays out in real time. Continuity was vital. And the entire cast and crew had to adapt because it was different from the style that we were shooting the rest of the film with. And it was really exhilarating. I mean, took us 8 days. Mikey and Yura did their own stunts. It was incredible to watch. We shot it in order. It was a challenge. I think we did it because of the challenge.
It's great. Now, you mentioned Mikey and Yura. This is now Oscar-nominated Best Actress, Mikey Madison, and Best Supporting Actor, Yura Borsov. I wonder if you can talk about how you cast your films, because it seems like you are always thinking outside of the box, versus, the way maybe conventionally things are done. Like Tangerine, for instance, the film you made entirely with iPhones. These are first-time actors, people who have in many cases lived experiences that are relevant to the movie. Florida Project, you find an incredible young kid at the time, Brooklyn Prince. Red Rocket, you basically revive the career of Simon Rex and find Susanna Sun, this actress who was like at a movie theater. I think you met her. And now we've got these two terrific talents, but had never had a platform like this. So like, how do you generally approach casting, and these two in particular? How did we end up with these two now new Oscar nominees?
Sure. Well, we try to mix it up. I actually, I cast the films along with my wife and producer, Samantha Kwan, and she really takes a major part of it, especially fleshing out most of my supporting cast. But what was interesting with this film is that there weren't as many first-timers. My whole main cast and most of my supporting cast, seasoned professionals. Now, when it came to Mikey, no audition process, easiest casting ever. I saw her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was blown away by her performance, and knew, as somebody who casts my own films, okay, I'm going to file her in the back of my head as somebody I may want to work with someday, or I want to work with someday. Then a few years later, when we were moving forward with Anora, we just happened to go to Scream opening weekend, and her performance in that is wonderful. It's full of humor. It shows the attitude. And it was really just a combination of those two performances. And I turned to Samantha while in the theater, and I said, she's our Annie. We're calling her agent the second we step out of the theater. And she happens to have the same agent as Brooklyn Prince.
Oh my
so it
God,
made things easy.
Yeah.
And then Yura I saw in a beautiful film called Compartment Number 6, a Finnish film by Juho Kusmasen. And we were at Cannes the same year together when I had Red Rocket. And I had already been developing Anora and knew there was going to be this heavy character of Igor. So he was pre-cast too. Both of them were cast before I wrote the screenplay, which was really wonderful because I was able to have their face and their auras in mind while writing this.
You also have a kind of lucky charm who has run through all of your films. Can you tell us who that is?
Well, he was the third one precast. That's Karan Karagulian. And
please.
No, he plays Toros in the film. And yes, he's been in every one of my films. He played Willem Dafoe's boss in Florida Project. He had a major role as a cab driver in Tangerine. And it was actually, this film probably exists because of him, quite honestly. It does. Because after, he has ties to this world. He's Armenian American who came over after the fall of the Soviet Union and found himself in Brighton Beach, has a lot of stories from that world, and married a Russian American, Lana, who plays his wife in the church scene. So, he's connected. And it was really him who really opened the world to us. And it was our goal together to eventually tell a story that took place in this world.
And to come back to your being such a cineast, this movie, you also, I think very deliberately, there are a lot of kind of stylistic references and things to the 70s Hollywood, right? Is that a favorite period of yours, or why? And talk about how that manifests in Anora.
Well, I grew up with 70s cinema. I adore it. It has such a, for me, it's classic. And so I always talk to, when I talk to my wonderful DP, Drew Daniels, about the looks of these films. He shot both Red Rocket and Anora. I say, I know these are contemporary stories, but I want the look to have the DNA of 1974. I want it to look like we shot in 1974. So we used the techniques that were used then. We shoot on film. We shot on 35 millimeter film. We sometimes flash the negatives so that we could get an extra little bit of luminance in those nighttime scenes, which is essentially a no-no these days because of insurance. You're not supposed to touch your negative. So we used older techniques in order to, I think, achieve this look.
And even your posters and things are very thought through. Right?
Yes, and that's what I love. Neon has been incredible as a distributor here in the United States. They really have we work together to say, if this film was put out in the 70s or 80s, how would it be promoted? And they really leaned into that. I love the key art that they've come up with and the images that they use to really promote this film and get it out there.
That's great. Well, for, a lot of us got very excited about this movie in Cannes. Clearly, more and more people have caught up with it since, as we saw this weekend. And it's great to have you here. So thank you for this. And,
all right.
We are going to now introduce our third honoree of the evening. He is a 36-year-old American who won the Venice Film Festival's Best Director Prize and the Best Director Golden Globe Award, was nominated for the Best Director Critics' Choice and Directors Guild Awards, and is nominated for the Best Director BAFTA and Academy Awards. Let's take a look at a scene from The Brutalist, directed by Brady Corbet.